Welcome to another episode of the Fresh Blerd Air podcast. I am your host, Black Thanos, and I am joined by the one and only Rule 19 Cosplay. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So, the people who may not be familiar with your work, you want to give a quick background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I go by Rule 19 Cosplay, the Black Dread. I've been cosplaying since 2001, so way back in the day. I started out really as part of a group that I created. It was an entrepreneurial venture called SBL, Orange Lightning Demo, or SBL OLD. And what we did was we reenacted fight scenes from various pop culture media, movies, things like that. Mostly media, live action type of things, and we would reenact the fight scenes from those various items. So, Mortal Kombat, Star Wars Episode One, The Phantom Menace, and that's where I really got into more of a cosplay thing because we were doing live action reenactments with the martial arts, but we started to do more popular, more recognizable characters. Um, Probably around 2001, 2002. And I was back then, I did Scorpion first, and then really roughly, maybe within a week or two, I did Darth Maul. And the other two gentlemen that I worked with did Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. So this was before we even knew what cosplay was or that cosplay was a thing. Um, we were just trying to make sure that we had, accurate representation of the characters during the fight sequences because the choreography was move for move
Mm-hmm.
without the special effects.
Pretty much. So the topic of what we're getting into today will be it's called the good, the bad, the ugly of cosplay, because there's a lot of things out there where people say that, oh, you can't dress up as this character because of your skin tone.
Yep, I've heard that. Nobody's ever said that to me. Eh, eh, I think it's one of those things that you're never gonna get people to stop making foolish comments like that. Like I cosplay who I want. Nobody's gonna stop me. I think everybody should be able to do the same thing, right? You cosplay characters that you relate to, that you identify with, and not just because of the race of the character. One of the most backwards things that I've seen come out of, what I would deem as cosplay hate is telling people that they can't cosplay a character because of a certain race when the cosplayer or the people that are hating on the cosplayer aren't of the race of the original character either.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make sense. It's hate for no reason other than racism, and just stop it.
Because even with the controversy that happened at BlurCon, I think it was last year, they it blew up to where it didn't need to be because of
It
they said,
was 2 years
oh
ago,
yeah,
not last year. It was the
two
year before
oh
that.
2 years ago.
Yeah,
Because then when we supposed to be having a good time and everything, and it's not even supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be an open space, space where everybody can come together. It's not just oh, this is just for black people and everything. That's supposed to be for everybody.
agreed. And here are my thoughts on that because I didn't do a whole bunch of speaking on it. I was in the contest, by the way, and there was a lot of reaction on social media from people who weren't at BlerdCon, were not participants in the contest, really didn't have a position to speak on it from that respect. But there were also a lot of flack coming across from the initial reaction and from what some of the judges said online, which is understandable. I get why people was upset. To me, it wasn't that big of a deal. I don't join contests just because I'm like trying to, get social media clout or anything else. And I'm not saying that that's what other people are doing. It's just everybody joins for their own reasons, right? I cosplayed and I did not build 80% of my cosplay, and I let the judges know that because I knew I couldn't win with, 50% build, right?
Hmm.
I was just there to showcase my cosplay because it was my first time working, for example, with foam. Um, and foam and fabric at the same time. So I learned new skills. I applied new skills. That's why I wanted to showcase. Um, from a standpoint of the controversy itself, yeah, it blew up way more than it had to be. Sometimes you also have to understand that you can't exclude in an environment like that, right? It's supposed to be a safe place for blurs, but you can't outright say if you're not black, you can't come to this event, right? That's illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. Like it happens in the reverse to us all the time, and we have to go through court battles and all this stuff to make any semblance of equality or equity. But we can't do the same thing. Right? The backlash against us is way worse. That being said, the person that entered probably should have known that that wasn't their space to enter, and I'll just stop there.
Mm-hmm. Have you come across any cosplays that you would like to do, but maybe difficult to, I guess, get together?
Um, that there's always a limitation on cosplay, and it's a personal limitation, right? So there's a I would really like to do a huge build of a Balrog from Lord of the Rings, right?
Mm-hmm.
But budgetary, like I don't want to do a crappy Balrog build, right? I want it to be massive, right? I want it to be not able to fit inside the regular general convention space without having to be put together inside the space and then disassembled to move it around.
Mm-hmm.
But budgetary concerns come up with that, right? That's got to be a massive build, right? You know, it was computer generated for the movie, right? There's not a whole bunch of movies that are doing like huge animatronics like they did back in the early 80s and 90s um, at that level anymore. And part of that is cost, but
Yeah.
and it's also time because I'm still in school. I just finished my second bachelor's. I'm working on my a master's degree. I just don't
Congrats,
have.
congrats.
Oh, appreciate it. I just don't have the time.
Mm-hmm. I
And
understand.
there would probably be a lot more builds that I would delve into. Like I'm working on several now, but and some of them I don't have the time, so I'm gonna commission it. Like it's just what do I have the time, the ability, and the budget to do based off of those limitations? That's the only thing stopping me. Creativity and what's going on in my brain, there's no limit to what I could come up with.
Are there any cosplays that you saw at BlerdCon this year that really, interest you?
Um, yeah, I think there's quite a few. I'm not gonna get myself in trouble by calling any of them out. Because I don't want people to be like, oh, you were hanging out with me, you didn't mention my cosplay. I saw a lot of cosplays at BlerdCon. Like BlerdCon, I feel like is a space where like we really show up and show out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it can be the simplest of cosplays from a standpoint of how it was built, but the way that we produce it, the way that we showcase it, it just takes it to a whole other level. So I appreciate that creativity in the Blerd community, and there's so many different variations that I saw of similar characters at
Mm-hmm.
BlerdCon, but there's also that unique spin that we put on it with just I'm gonna apply some blackness, some for the culture to this moment. I love that. You don't see that every con.
How did you get, what kind of support have you gotten, when you first started in 2001 from your family and friends and everything?
Well, so in 2001 when I first started in that genre, so to speak, it was after I had already built this entrepreneurial uh, venture, right? So I was already doing these martial arts performances and stuff probably about 5 or 6 years prior to that. And then I just other people wanted to do it with me, right? It
Mm-hmm.
was a solo venture. Like um my first performance, I was just dressed as a black ninja and I did a nunchuck demonstration, a double nunchuck demonstration with glowing nunchucks. And from that point on, other people wanted to get involved, and we coordinated, got some practice spaces, and we just started doing it from there. My parents, particularly my mother, was very supportive. My dad later on was very supportive. He kind of missed the boat until after I had gotten
Mhm.
much older and much more experience in the martial arts community. Um, and I think there was always this underground kind of movement back then because I hadn't been to a con yet. I hadn't gone to Dragon Con. I hadn't gone to San Diego or New York Comic Con or any of these big name cons back then. And BlerdCon didn't exist back then, right? There's no
Right.
such thing. Um, but I feel like I had a lot of support from just my inner circle, and at the same time, like I've always been a little odd, always been, well, a lot odd, and I've always kind of done my own thing. So it really didn't matter if the support was there or not for me because I was going to do it
Mhm.
regardless.
Right. Have you, I guess, have you got any, I guess, anybody, I guess, famous reached out to you or, commented on your cosplays and everything?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on who do you consider famous, right? Like all celebrities at different levels. Um, and sometimes that recognition that you get, like I never do it for recognition, but when it comes up, it's like, hey, that's pretty awesome, right?
Mhm.
So I'll give you an example. I've had it have it happen several times, and like little things, um, but it meant something to me at the time, right? So there was a situation right before the pandemic. I was building um, the Tetsaiga. It was a 3D print. I was putting it together, doing the whole paint job on the Tetsaiga for my Inuyasha cosplay, and Inuyasha was going to be my, I guess, my reintroduction to cosplay after I'd taken a 5 or 6 year hiatus from doing anything that I considered nerd related. Um, and I got an Instagram message or like or comment, what have you, from Insta Daniel Logan, who played um, Boba Fett, young Boba Fett in Star Wars.
Mhm.
And I was like, that's really cool because it's like, there's no way that he would have known that I cosplayed as Darth Maul, right? And I've spoken to the actual Darth Maul, Ray Park, on several occasions. Never actually got to meet him in person, but online spoken to him directly several times. Um, but there's no way that Daniel would have known that I was doing that, and then to have that kind of crossover genre on the anime side and get that level of appreciation
Mhm.
just off of a prop build, that was pretty cool. And then most recently at BlerdCon, I met Nakia Baris from Power Rangers. She played Yellow Rangers in Zeo and Turbo, and I did not know that I had met her at MomoCon, right? As MomoCon is kind of the de facto meetup place for a lot of Black and Afrocentric cosplayers in the Atlanta area, right? Even though it's not a
Mhm.
Black owned con, uh, but we show up, right?
Right.
And I met her. I'd met Karen Ashley, the one of the original Mighty Morphin Yellow Power Rangers, and Christy Renee, all of them at that in that same section at MomoCon, and I met Karen Ashley before, but I decided that that particular MomoCon I was going to dress up cosplay as Dragonfly Jones. Now I've done Dragonfly Jones cosplay from the Martin Show in Atlanta before, but I did it for DragonCon. I was like, eh, I was doing a dragon theme, so all of my cosplays either had a water theme or a dragon theme at the time. Shredder Green
Mhm.
Ranger, Dragon, Dragonfly Jones, Dragon, etc., etc. So I did a MomoCon, and being Dragonfly Jones, I'm gonna be the menace that I am. I go to people's table, I mess with them, I do the things that Dragonfly does, right?
Mhm.
And I did not know that Nakia was recording. I knew that Karen was recording, and Nakia posted it on her page, and she just didn't have my information, but she tagged Martin Lawrence, she tagged her, he tagged his daughter Jasmine, and Jasmine recognized it. She loved it, and so I just went, and after she told me about it at BlurCon, I was like, hey, well, here's my info. Now we can actually have that connection back to coming full circle.
Hmm.
Because oddly enough, Jasmine and I are both alumni of Duke University, so that's where my first degree came from. My second is from Northeastern University, so really small circle kind of moment.
That's cool. That's pretty cool. It's a nice, full circle, interaction moment, because you never know who's watching. Like,
This is true. And now we're just trying to get Martin. We're trying to get her dad's attention because he's got his tag set up. You can't just nobody can just tag him. Not everybody can tag him. So if you're out there, Martin Lawrence, hit a brother up. You know what I'm saying? Silence.
with your cosplays, have you had any musical inspiration to what characters you pick?
Hmm, that's a good question. I don't think I've had any musical aspirations or influences. Um, there was a because I very rarely cosplay actual people. They're always characters, right?
Hmm.
At one point, some people say I look like Tech Nine when I'm out and about in my regular non-nerd attire. And I
Hmm.
think it's because of the beard, but I'm like, I don't see the resemblance. I do, but I don't give them that credit. Um, but I've thought about just randomly cosplaying as Pastor Troy again because a long beard, but like he's like 6'3". I'm 5'8". Eh, I don't have any camo gear. I got a championship belt around here somewhere. I could make it work.
Are there any cons that you have on your list of checking out before 2023 is over?
Um, let's see. I had to scrap a few plans. Like I won't be going to Dragon Con this year. But that's one that I definitely usually go to. As far as cons that I definitely will probably hit, um, Anime Week in Atlanta is probably my next closest. Baltimore Comic Con is up in the air, and that's really because that's smack in the middle of um, new fall quarter for me. So it literally will have started probably maybe 2 weeks into it. So I don't know how I feel about doing that traveling. It's not up the street for me. Um, and then we'll see about Homat. I like going to Homat. It's one of my favorite cons outside of BlerdCon. But these new midweek dates that the hotel pushed on them is not looking very promising. So we'll see.
Did you happen to see well, I think everybody saw it, but I guess the theme going for next year for BlurCon?
Yes, Summer Madness.
Hmm.
Yep, I have no idea what I'm wearing. I have no clue. In fact, I changed up my lineup for BlurCon this year probably 5 or 6 times before I finally settled on something, which doesn't happen. It doesn't happen often. Usually, I know, months in advance what cosplays I'm gonna do. That gives me time to do, shoots if I need to do shoots beforehand. If it's a new cosplay that I haven't dropped yet, more often than not, I do a shoot before I drop it at a con.
Hmm.
Um, and primarily the reason for that is twofold. So it's partially a test fit or a cost test, but it's also I want to get my in-house shoots or my professional shoots before I do my on-location shoots because there's always a little bit of a time difference between the hours that I'm in the cosplay and when I can actually do a shoot at a con, especially if it's a big con and there's a lot going on. Um, and one thing that I've learned in my experience with cosplay is it never fits or works the same way on the con floor as it does at home. I don't care
Oh
what you
yeah.
do.
Yep. As soon as
Something is going to change.
yeah, because that's usually not even dealing with cosplay. That's just usually a lot of things. Like, okay, it worked at home, so why is it not working here?
Murphy's
You
Law,
did,
man.
yeah, you didn't did so many tests and everything. And like, all right, it works perfectly. Soon as you get like, and now it doesn't. It don't work the way it's supposed to.
Facts. Doesn't fit right. stuff falling apart that was perfectly fitting before. It just all kinds of different things can go wrong, and sometimes it's just minor stuff, and then sometimes it's major. It's like, oh, that's not gonna work.
How do you deal uh with like body paint and everything? Because I know, especially when it's hot and everything, and it starts to, I guess, melt or come off.
So, and that's a good question. That's an interesting question, and I always get this when it's quote unquote hot. Like, how do you define hot? Like, I prefer a higher temperature. Like, I don't start to get bothered by heat until it's like 95 or above. And that's regardless of what I'm wearing. I'm comfortable in heat. I don't like being cold. Um, and I'm also from the South. Like, heat and humidity doesn't bother me. What are y'all talking about? But when I put on my cosplay makeup or body paint or anything like that, like there's a combination I usually use of different types of setting spray that keeps it. It's not going to keep it from coming off, permanently, right? It's going to come off if you rub on, you know, clothing and different things, right? But
Hmm.
the better quality setting spray will give it a more permanent um, fix, at least for a limited time. But that keeps me from sweating out of it. Um, I'm more concerned like if I'm wearing prosthetics, if I'm going to sweat out. So I use a stronger set of prosthetic adhesive that can withstand sweat, doesn't dissolve it like some other stuff. Um, but if y'all want to know what version I use, send me a DM or something. They ain't paying me. No free advertising over here, buddy.
Understandable. So this portion of the interview, I get into five, just random questions.
Okay.
First question: favorite musical artist?
Dylan, 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 and Dylan because he spit hot fire.
Let's see. Favorite food?
Ooh, see, and I'm a foodie. I love to eat. If my go-to is definitely soul food. Like that's and not everybody's soul food either, right? I'm picky about my collard greens. I'm picky about my turnip and mustard greens, my smothered pork chops, candy yams, sweet potato pie, like anything that is stereotypically Southern. I grew up in the South. I grew up on that stuff. That's what I can eat every day, not just holidays. That that's a favorite.
Favorite movie of 2023?
Ooh, mm, I would have to say Across the Spider Verse.
It's gonna be a while before the before the next one comes out.
Yeah, and I mean that's to be expected. I'd rather them do it right than rush it. But yeah, we also have to deal with the various actors and writer strikes. So
Because a lot of movies just stop production because of the
yep,
writer's strike.
yep, and I don't blame them. Like pay people for what they work for. Like stop being cheap.
Hopefully, you know they get what they really deserve and what they really want, so we can get back to you know making good movies.
Absolutely.
Favorite anime?
Oh, see, now you're really gonna get me in trouble. I'm gonna flip that. I'm gonna flip that question and go favorite old school anime, and I'm gonna give you a series and a movie. Right.
Okay.
All right. So my favorite old school anime movie, Ninja Scroll.
Ooh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I could watch that on repeat. Um, Dub, not sub version, and don't get me started with that. But I just prefer the dub version. Um, you shouldn't be trying to learn Japanese from anime anyway. Come on, let's be serious.
Oh no, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Saying that you end up saying the wrong thing.
And then favorite series, old school anime. Um, in America, it was called Ronin Warriors, but overseas
Yeah.
it was Samurai Troopers.
Yeah.
Yeah, love that show.
Let's say uh dream cosplay.
Mm. Tch. So I told you about the Balrog, so that's definitely one of them.
Hmm.
Um, Outside of that one, and I have a massive list. Like I keep a huge spreadsheet with all of my cosplays and things, and also use Trello boards for that. I would have to say that one of my dream cosplays is Blackheart from Marvel, the Demon Blackheart.
Oh,
Yeah,
you know what? I've never seen that.
I've been trying
I've
to get that one done for
I
years, but
haven't I haven't seen anybody do Blackheart yet.
yeah, and I'm not building that one. That one's definitely a commission
Hmm.
because I ain't got time.
Before we got here, do you want to plug anything?
Shameless plugs for all my social medias. So it's Rule 19 Cosplay, the Black Dread. So just Rule 19 Cosplay on all socials. That's the Book of Faces, Instagram, this new Threads, Tweetville, but I'm hardly ever there. So most of the time you'll see me on IG or Threads. But I also have a fan house for people that interested in subscribing services, passes.com for more intimate. I won't say intimate, but like if you want to get like more behind the scenes stuff, some of the builds that I do, props and things like that, um, passes and fan house are the way to go. And then obviously anything that's coming up, new new cons, new videos, things like that. You're gonna pop over to my website, rule19cosplay.com. And then obviously I want to plug some of the projects that I've done in the past that people may not be aware of. So check out X-Men Children of the Atom. Um, you can find that on Always Press Record app on Fire and Roku TV. And it's also available on YouTube, but it's probably going to be just easier to find it on Always Press Record TV app, on your Fire TV app or Roku TV app. Again, X-Men Children of the Atom. Super fun project with a lot of cosplayers. There's probably 30 or 40 of us. So definitely check that out. That was produced by Hellspawn Productions. And yeah, that's all I got.
I really appreciate you for coming on. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to interview you.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a pleasure. This is my one exclusive interview for 2023. I'm glad it was, with a good person like you. So hopefully, other people will watch it and want to know more. This want to be the one of the few times you'll see me just chilling, hanging out outside of cosplay. And I don't do these often because I'm busy. I got school.
Thank you for coming through. Everybody, make sure you follow Fresh Blerd Air. I am on YouTube, Instagram. You can always catch me on shoot, I'm on everything. Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. Thank you and signing out.